Hello, my name is Brendan McNamara, and today I want to present to you the very strong case against masks' efficacy in limiting viral transmission. Or, put more simply, why, quote, masks don't work. And I'm going to present this evidence to you using the best available science. Sound good? Let's go. Mask wearing has been adamantly and repeatedly upheld to us as one of the primary weapons against COVID-19 pandemic, right? We have collectively acquiesced to mask mandates to the point that the non-compliant now are denied education, employment, and access to basic goods and services. Now, if we're going to acquiesce to that point, then the evidence of the efficacy of the measures should be presented to us in such a fashion that there should be no question as to how effective they are, right? If we have to wear masks, well, then they better do what we're being told they do. The case for why we're wearing masks has never been suitably demonstrated, either before, during, or after, in some cases now, the execution of these mandates. You may have read articles, or at least headlines, most of us, that have presented an opinion, a theory, a hypothesis, different from the one I'm going to present today. And this could be an opportunity for me to go and tear at all the arguments made, but I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do is present an argument. I'm not going to debate anything here. I'm just going to present you with facts from science. I'm going to accentuate the positive, eliminate the negative. Imagine a bunch of people behind me, Busby Berkeley, kick lines, drone shots, that kind of thing. Okay, you have no doubt, as I have felt, inundated by the argument for masks, that masks do work for, well, almost a year now, right? Hopefully you've also noted the manner and types of evidentiary support that has been offered buttressing those affirmations of its use, right? I, for one, have not found those to be very convincing at all, very substantial. So I went looking to see if maybe there was evidence of better quality, of higher quality. Now you may be asking yourself, why do you keep talking about better and high quality? Why do you get to decide, Brendan? Who are you? I'm just an actor and a thinking person, the latter of which all of you are. I went looking to see if there's better information, better science available. And there is. How great is that? Science literally means knowledge, right? The word just means knowledge. But in the formal pursuit of knowledge, in the formal pursuit of science, it's important to recognize the quality of potential information so we can better understand what information we hold on to, what information we let go of or hold on to more lightly. What information do we know that becomes knowledge, or what things are we merely guessing at? Guessing is important too. Guessing is extremely important, right? We guess, we hypothesize, we theorize, we test, and then we look at the evidence to see where our guesses meet reality. That is just the fundamental nature of how we conduct science, how we arrive at knowledge. So, as the credo goes, let's follow the science. So, how do we follow the science as objectively and effectively as possible? Well, to aid us in that, there is a traditional, universally accepted hierarchy of scientific evidence. I want you to grab, if you have another device, whatever you're watching this on, grab another device. Go ahead and Google it right now. Hierarchy of scientific evidence. So we can all see what it is, see that it's agreed upon, and all get on the same page. So we can start this, even if you think you have a different point of view of this than I do, we can start from the same place. I think that's the best possible way to do this, right? The hierarchy of scientific evidence gives us a way to follow the science. It gives us the start of the road, where we should follow it to, and how we should follow it all the way to the end, to the highest quality scientific evidence available. Okay, did you look it up? Okay, so look at all that. It's a whole bunch of triangles, a whole bunch of pyramids, right? Separated into different boxes, a bunch of different colors. It's cool, right? Okay, I picked this one. So I picked this one really just for the specificity of language therein. I like the color combination, but I want you to go ahead and look at it and cross-reference it with every other example that you can find, and note that essentially these are all saying the exact same thing. This is what tells us what good science is and bad science is. It's not up to me, Brendan. It's up to science, right? All right, so we're all on the same page, at least right now. Let's get going. I want to briefly indicate this lower level here. I've spoken to many people who believe that masks are effective in limiting viral transmission. The number one reason that I've heard or read is that they say that, quote unquote, experts say so. Some of them even claim that most, if not all, experts or scientists say so. Now, I've never seen any evidence for the claim that most scientists think so, but let's set that aside for a second. Let's look what type of evidence, what does science say about what experts say, or even what the consensus of experts' opinion is. It's here. Look at this, on the bottom left corner. It's literally on the level of the least convincing type of data still acceptable to bear the moniker data or evidence that would inform our knowledge, our science. I want to climb the pyramid, so let's ascend a bit. On the way, I want to mention the majority of scientific studies that we've been provided as means for evidence for the claim of yes, masks do work are from lab studies with no human participants. There have been dozens of observational retrospective case studies. That's a little better, but it's still on the less relevant side of things. The highest support evidence from scientific study has been right here in the middle, with a systematic survey or a meta survey of this low confidence science all compiled together. That sweet puppy from the middle there, as of today, as of right now, the highest tier scientific evidence, according to the traditional hierarchy of scientific evidence, in support of mask wearing, saying masks do work, masks are effective at limiting viral transmission, was a systematic survey of these observational trials, of this low science, all compiled together. That was the study that was said to have been responsible for the reversal of position on public mask wearing by the WHO, and after that, the CDC last year, which I'm sure you all remember. Now, if that was the best we had, I'd be like, all right, well, cool, that's the best we have. That's what we have to work with. Let's do it. Let's follow it. That's all we have. However, it's not. We've only followed the science literally halfway towards the best science available and just stopped and said, let's just do that, which would only make sense if there was no more. Is there more? There's tons more. Let's keep going. It's not time to stop or to just go and do stuff, because there is still top-tier scientific evidence available to us. Follow the science. Let's keep going. There have been dozens of random controlled trials, RCTs, done regarding masks and viral transmission. There have been RCTs done on masks and viral transmission of a multitude of respiratory viruses, from SARS-CoV-2 to influenza to the common cold. And you would think the common cold, like, who cares about that? The common cold is also typically caused by a coronavirus, so it is completely appropriate and super helpful here. These RCTs stretch back a decade or more, all the way up to just last year. Also, there are systematic surveys of RCTs. Look at the pyramid. That's literally the top of the pops. It's the creme de la creme. If RCTs are the gold standard of scientific proof, as an aside, you should just Google RCTs, gold standard of scientific proof, to see how those go together, like PB&J, like milk and cookies, like beans and cornbread. But a systematic survey of the gold standard is like the Fort Knox of scientific proof. And we have those too. So we're going to follow the science all the way to the top. So let's look at some stark language from the RCTs, from high quality scientific evidence according to the hierarchy of scientific evidence. Let's go back to 2009. I want you to imagine 2009. Maybe you were in your car in a parking lot by yourself. You're singing along to Beyonce's "I Can See Your Halo," right? There we are, 2009. Meanwhile, this was being published. This is a RCT studying the effectiveness of surgical masks in the healthcare setting in Japan. The common cold is a coronavirus. They're cousins. Let's skip straight to the results. Face mask use in healthcare workers has not been demonstrated to provide benefit in terms of cold symptoms or getting colds. Okay, look at what else it says. Subjects in the mask group were significantly more likely to experience headache during the study period. So masks were not effective in limiting viral transmission, but they were effective in deleterious health effects. Gotcha. Yeah, okay, but that's just one, right? And there's weaknesses to this study. There are weaknesses to every single study that's ever been conducted by human beings, right? One study is not going to convince anyone, Brendan. Okay, but I'm not finished. Not remotely. Let's jump to 2012. You were probably in the shower, singing along to Rihanna Calvin Harris. We found love. Yeah, in a hopeless place. And this was being published. Okay, let's skip to the good stuff again. There were no substantial reductions in ILI, that's influenza-like illness, or laboratory-confirmed influenza in the face mask-only group compared to the control. Just to be clear, control was the naked face group. Put it away! Your epidermis is showing! Your craniofacial epidermis is showing! Did anyone else do that joke back in grade school? I did. I fell for it, and then I used it. Yeah, throwback. But are we sure? Nothing worked in this trial, Brendan? I didn't say that. Check this out. Our study demonstrated a significant association between the combined use of face masks and hand hygiene, and a substantially reduced incidence of ILI, influenza-like illness, during a seasonal influenza outbreak. If masks and hand hygiene have similar impacts on primary incidence of infection with other seasonal and pandemic strains, particularly in crowded community settings, then transmission of viruses between persons may be significantly decreased by these interventions. Hey, Brendan, look, what did they just say? These things could have an impact if masks and hand hygiene have similar impacts of, yes, they said if. Read what they said next. Masks alone did not provide a benefit, suggesting that single personal protective interventions do not protect against incidence of ILI or influenza. So, masks and hygiene did work. Masks alone did not. You don't need a master's in sophistry to understand that hand hygiene is effective. So fresh, so clean, high five, bam! Masks are not. 2015, you were dancing like an old man to Hotline Bling. Right? You remember? When this was published in its final form. This is the first RCT of cloth masks. Only one. And still the heavyweight champ of cloth mask evidence. This study is the first RCT of cloth masks. Brag much? And the results caution against the use of cloth masks. Why? The rates of all infection outcomes were highest in the cloth mask arm, with the rate of ILI statistically significantly higher in the cloth mask arm compared with the medical mask arm. Cloth masks also had significantly higher rates of ILI compared with the control arm. Now, the control arm in this RCT was common practice, which included mask wearing and naked face. This tells us what the control group did. There was half as much mask use in the control group as there was in the cloth and medical arms. And still, look at this, cloth masks were the worst. Medical masks, no statistically significant improvement over the control group. Statistical significance in RCTs or any studies essentially is a notable leap that goes beyond that could be explained away by chance. So cloth masks recommended by the WHO and the CDC everywhere were found in the highest quality science available to be the worst possible option if you're trying to limit viral transmission. Is that what you're saying? Well, that's what I'm saying. But I'm only saying that because science says this is the best science to follow to, and that's what this science says. That's what the evidence says. Here's just one of many examples of how the evidence contradicts the narrative. And it's vital for us as scientists, all of us, pursuers of knowledge, to look at the evidence, not even how handsome the person presenting it is, how accredited I may or may not be. What is the quality of the evidence? And here is what the evidence says. Quick note once again on this line of import. Let's look at this line. Adverse events associated with face mask use were reported in 40.4% of HCWs, healthcare workers, in the medical mask arm, and 42.6% in the cloth mask arm. General discomfort and breathing problems were the most frequently reported adverse events. So not only has mask wearing been demonstrated to be harmful to your health in multiple RCTs, cloth masks have actually now been demonstrated to be conductive of infection. So it doesn't limit it. It actually makes you more likely to infect and be infected. Looking at other evidence of how masks and other viruses work is the best corollary we have as to how masks and SARS-CoV-2, look who's coughing now, would work as well. They haven't worked in these communities for influenza, the common cold. It is not reasonable to assume that they would work for SARS-CoV-2, right? That's a reasonable assumption. Now, the closest thing we have to a COVID-specific study is an RCT done out of Denmark, published just last year. Now, caveat, it is a RCT on a mask mandate, not the efficacy of the intervention itself. I'd like to look at it briefly though, because they did discover an effect very similar to everything that we've looked at so far. This study found, although the difference observed was not statistically significant, the 95% CIs are compatible with a 46% reduction, hey, that sounds good, to a 23% increase in infection. Oh no. So that, not particularly divergent from the best science available that we're looking at. Now, all of that was what the scientific pyramid, let's look at it again, we can see is tier 2 scientific evidence. It's so close to the top. Wouldn't it be sweet if we had anything better? But if we can't, we just have to move along. Oh wait, yes we do. We do, true believers. Excelsior to the highest. Let's go. So finally, we've reached the pinnacle. We've followed the science to what science says is the best science available. Let's look at what it says. Here it is, August 2020. Maybe you were jaw-dropped at WAP, or maybe you were learning the choreography from BTS's Dynamite, and then you sprained your ankle during this TikTok video, so you never actually even put it out. Meanwhile, this study was published in the International Journal of Nursing Studies. This is a systematic survey reckoning with results of 19 RCTs. 19! Gosh, that's weird, considering there's been a year of messaging that these don't exist at all. Look here at the Wall Street Journal. October 2020, what the pandemic has taught us about science. Oh, that's ironic. But there have been no randomized controlled trials on the wearing of masks to prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. What? NPR, March of 2020. There's no definitive evidence from published research that wearing masks in public will protect the person wearing the mask from contracting diseases. Hey, that's what I've been saying. In fact, randomized controlled trials, considered the gold standard for testing the effectiveness of an intervention, are limited, and the results from those trials was inconclusive, says Fang. Fang. That's just not true. MedPage Today. Look at that headline. No RCT for masks? No problem. No problem, right? Oh, we'll be fine without them. Except we have them. We have 19 addressed here. None, 19. 19 or none. Okay, just go with me for a second. What's more reasonable here? Wall Street Journal, NPR. I love NPR. MedPage Today. I've never heard of that before. Are they all lying or didn't do any due diligence in terms of editorial? Or is this systematic survey in a medical journal inventing 19 RCTs which they studied? Already now we've looked at RCTs in the community and in healthcare systems, right? So we can kind of assume what this says, right? We don't even have to read it. No, that's not what science does. We always follow the science. We look at what the evidence says. So let's look at it. I want to draw your attention particularly to what this highest quality science says about masks and viral transmission in the healthcare setting specifically. Why am I focusing on the healthcare setting? Well, one, it helps my argument. Two, it's like testing the waterproofness of a wetsuit in a waterfall. Okay, in a healthcare setting, that's where A, interaction with virus particles is likely almost to the point of certainty. B, that's where compliance with mitigating measures with interventions in this group are likely to be highest. C, that's where control of personnel, geography, circumstance, etc. is going to be the most controlled. And on a very mild and somewhat petty anecdotal note, how many times have you heard people say, well, hey, if doctors are wearing them, dude, what are we even talking about? Well, here's why. So here we are at the top. What does the best available scientific evidence say about masks, viral transmission in the most intense setting? It's the best science done in the most rigorous scientific environment. This is it. This is top of the pops. Randomized controlled trials showed that respirators, N95s, if worn continually during a shift, were effective, hey, but not if worn intermittently. Medical masks were not effective, and cloth masks even less effective. So N95s and medical masks were not effective, with the singular exception of N95s worn without interruption on an entire shift. No bathroom breaks, no smoke breaks, no anything. That is the lone case where a mask was found to be effective. Other than that, medical masks were not effective, and cloth masks were less than ineffective. What's less than ineffective? Oh, that's harmful. That's conductive of viral transmission. You could also call that counterproductive. That's literally worse than nothing. Medical masks, same as nothing. N95s, with the lone exception, same as nothing. Cloth masks, worse than nothing. So N95s taken kind of on and off throughout the day, medical masks, cloth masks, all of those not effective, into the realm of harmful. And that's exactly what has been mandated for us to do over the past year. That's what we've been told we have to do, or we can't go to our job, we can't go to school, we can't be around each other, we can't go into the grocery store to get food and water, which we need to survive. How pro-science is that? Brendan, but the CDC has been saying something different. Yes, but the repetition of a lie does not enhance its truthfulness. And speaking of the CDC, do you want to swerve over there just real quick before we head out the door? Does that sound good? Let's go. The CDC commissioned a policy review. It's sort of like a rapid-fire systematic survey. They did this last year as well. Let's check it out. This was done by authors at University of Hong Kong. This should be good. Hong Kong loves masks. Hong Kong has the highest mask compliance in the world. They love masks. This study's going to be great. Ardor doesn't necessarily equal effectiveness. 14 randomized controlled trials, 10 of which were the gold standard of scientific proof, observing correlation between mask wearing and incidence of influenza infection. And let's look at what they concluded. Although mechanistic studies support the potential effect of hand hygiene or face masks, let's pause for a second. Mechanistic studies is referring to the lab studies we talked about. Does it feel like a year ago? That means in a lab-controlled scenario. Then it seems like these things are effective. When these were studied according to the highest standard of scientific evidence in the real world, seeing if these interventions affect viral transmission, which is where we all live and what they're all mandated in, evidence from 14 randomized controlled trials of these measures did not support a substantial effect of transmission of laboratory-confirmed influenza. More specifically, on disposable medical masks, surgical masks, they said, there is limited evidence for their effectiveness in preventing influenza virus transmission, either when worn by the infected person for source control or when worn by uninfected persons to reduce exposure. Our systematic review found no significant effect of face masks on transmission of laboratory-confirmed influenza. So, is that enough? Are you not entertained? We followed the science. We followed it all the way to the top, all the way down the yellow brick road, all the way to Oz. We met the wizard, and he said, not effective. We followed the science where science told us to follow science too. Now we've seen many, many confirmations of what we all now know science tells us is the best science that we should look at. And let me say, this is largely not new information. I gave you the published dates on every single one of these studies. And yet I'm willing to bet that a lot of this information is stuff that you have not yet heard. Why is that? I don't have an answer for that. And if I did have an answer, I have a feeling I would be deeply disturbed by it. You now know, hopefully, a lot more than you did when we started this. We now know what the fully pro-science position is on masks limiting viral transmission, according to the best science available. Yay, knowledge! Please share this video with anyone who might be confused about this topic. Please share this with anyone who you've ever seen be unkind to those COVIDiots, those anti-maskers. Those doofuses, whether they know it or not, actually have the preponderance of science on their side. Many of those anti-maskers simply don't want to participate in something that has been presented to us with limited evidence, has been used to divide us, fill us with fear. It's been presented duplicitously and with shallow thinking and avoidance of the best science available. Y'all, it's crazy. Not to mention, there is evidence that I showed you that this is a harmful practice in terms of the people wearing masks, and it's harmful in terms of viral transmission. Is there a case to be made for mask use? Of course there is. There is a case to be made for every argument. The question you have to answer is, what position has the preponderance of quality evidence on its side? Another question this should provoke: why have I heard so much evidence from the bottom tiers of what science says is quality evidence? Why has that been repeated to me again and again and again? So when someone like me comes along and shares with you what science says is the best evidence and what it says, which contradicts the evidence that we've heard again and again and again, why has the best evidence been shut out and the worst evidence been stuck on a podium and given a megaphone? I don't know the answer to that question. That is for conspiracy theorists like you people who think that like government and Big Pharma are all colluding to work for your better. All I know is science says, most convincingly, masks don't work. Thanks for listening. Please share this. Let's follow the science. Soli Deo Gloria.